I'm joined now by Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota. Thanks so much for joining us on this very difficult week, Senator.
Well, thank you so much, Martha. I'm glad to have a chance to talk with you.
I know we just heard Mayor Frey say that what he sees in those videos is Renee Good trying to leave and that the ICE officer was not run over by a car. He said flatly that did not happen. Do you agree?
I do agree. I mean, I think what we are seeing here is the federal government, Kristi Noem, Vice President Vance, Donald Trump, attempting to cover up what happened here in the Twin Cities. And I don't think that people here and around the country are believing it. I mean, I can tell you what is going on right now in my community in the days after Renee Good was shot and killed. There is just chaos. With ICE agents grabbing American citizens, detaining them, arresting them, and as we've seen, shooting and killing them. And this deportation campaign of the Trump administration is hurting our public safety here in the Twin Cities, and it is dangerous, and it must stop.
You are saying the administration is trying to cover up this shooting. That's a pretty serious charge. What do you mean exactly?
What I mean by that is that you can see everything that they are doing is trying to shape the narrative to say what happened without any investigation. And, hours after Renee Good was shot and killed by federal agents, Kristi Noem was already telling us exactly what had happened. They were calling her a domestic terrorist before they even knew what her name was. And what I see, especially because they are blocking state investigators from participating in any way in this investigation, that they have a strategy of putting out what their version of events are. And that is very dangerous. And I don't think people are going to buy it, particularly after you see these videos. I mean, it's kind of incredible, isn't it, that this last video that they've released to sort of exonerate this officer actually does exactly the opposite. Here's this woman saying basically, hey, dude, I'm not mad at you. And seconds later, he has shot her 3 times in the face as she is just trying to get around him.
I want to talk about that latest video because there were clearly words between the officers and Renee Good and her wife, Rebecca. Do you know or have any idea what happened before that, what precipitated those comments? And does this change your mind at all? It sounds like it doesn't.
No, it doesn't, because, I approach this from my perspective, having worked for many years with law enforcement, both at the city of Minneapolis and also at the state level. And I understand how law enforcement, professional law enforcement, is trained. They are trained to de-escalate situations, not make them worse, not make conflict worse. They are certainly trained to step out of the way of a moving vehicle, not place themselves in the middle of a moving vehicle. And no professional law enforcement would like exchange words or banter with somebody who is engaged in their legal right to protest and then lose control, which is, which looks to me like what happened here.
Congressman Ilhan Omar, who represents Minneapolis, described Good as a legal observer of ICE. What does that entail? What do you know about that? Obviously, the administration has a different narrative about that.
Well, I know what's happening in this community is that folks that are not the targets of this ICE operation are going to trainings, volunteer trainings, and the purpose is to be learn what they are allowed to do, what they are legally allowed to do in order to observe what's happening on the street and to be able to catch video, which is, of course, all completely legal, and then be able to sort of help Americans document what is happening with this incredible deportation campaign. And that's my understanding about what was going on here on Wednesday.
You've also had some fairly large protests there in Minnesota, and there are some across the country as well. Some of them turned violent. In Minneapolis, attacking a hotel or throwing things at a hotel where ICE agents were believed to be staying. What would you say to those protesters? And also, what would you say to those who don't want the ICE agents there about taking care or how they approach officers?
Yeah. Well, I want to observe first that the overwhelming amount of demonstrations that have happened have been peaceful. Yesterday, there was a demonstration of thousands of people in Powderhorn Park in the center of South Minneapolis that was peaceful. Of course, it is essential that we have peaceful protests. And what I have been saying to people and all the opportunities I have when I talk to people on the street is that the Trump administration wants to foment chaos and division and fear and even violence. And it is essential that we do not fall into that trap. That our strength is in our unity, our strength is in our peaceful demonstrations, and we will not give in. We will not sort of cave into the fear and the chaos that they are trying to create. They are creating, but we will meet that with unity and with peace.
And Senator, you say, and we've seen this, the administration rushing to judgment here on exactly what happened, but plenty of Democrats made very quick judgments as well. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Eric Swallow, Seth Moulton called the officer, what happened there, a murder. So others are rushing to judgment too. Is that what you want to hear?
What I think is essential to keep in mind here is that if we're going to trust the federal government, how can we trust the federal government to do an objective, unbiased investigation without prejudice when at the beginning of that investigation they have already announced exactly what they saw, what they think happened? And then they bar from participating in the investigation the unbiased state investigators who frequently collaborate with federal investigators on when there are things that need to be looked into. So, I mean, I think they have just completely destroyed any credibility as they have so quickly rushed to judgment.
So just to button this up, you do not think that the officer was rammed. You do not think that Renee Good did anything wrong.
I have seen nothing in any of the eyewitness videos nor in any of the eyewitness reports from this tragic day that would suggest that she was in any way a threat to these officers. But again, this is why we need to have a fair and unbiased investigation so we can gather all of the evidence and all of the information and we can know exactly what's happening. And what I think is going on here is the administration does not want that to happen. And that looks to me like a cover-up.
And just legally, do you think the ICE officer certainly said he feared bodily harm? Is that possible in your eyes?
I mean, it's hard for me, looking at the evidence that I have seen, to imagine how he could feel bodily harm. I mean, the guy is holding a camera, holding his phone with one hand taking video, while with the other hand he is shooting this woman in the face 3 times. And he stumbles back, and then he swears at her as she careens off to her death. That does not look to me like an individual who was in fear of danger and from his part.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Senator. We appreciate it very greatly.
Thank you so much, Martha.